So this is the title of the presentation, African Space Policy and Strategy, ensuring that we have a fruitful development, socio-economic development in Africa. This is basically the content of the presentation. For the sake of time, I will not go through it. As we'll be going through the presentation, you will get all the different aspects of it. Well, Africa, our mother Africa, in terms of generality, it's home to 55 member countries, covering some 30.4 million square kilometers, quite big. It's the second largest in the world. In terms of population also, it's quite well endowed with 1.2, that was in 2016. Now we are talking about 1.3 billion people. And the population over the past 27 years has really doubled. The African developmental challenges. Agenda 2063, which is basically the Africa we want, is an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful one. And achieving Agenda 2063 is dependent upon several factors. And the first of them is the, the African economic pillar, which is really underpinned by agriculture, natural resources, and water, energy, the blue economy, and of course, digital infrastructure. We also have the context, the global landscape, which is basically rapidly changing. In that we have impressive economic growth as far as Africa is concerned. The aggregate GDP of the continent has doubled in the last 10 years to over 2.2 trillion US dollars. Increase of democracy level. And I think that you are all lawyers, you agree with me that despite some of the skirmishes, overall democracy level is improving in the continent. In terms of societal, we have mass movement, migration, population growth, and growing youth population. Africa is a very, very young continent with more than 60% of the population being under 30 years of age. And the third factor that I would mention here is the global challenges in which Africa cannot subtract itself from. There is, of course, the climate change and variability, disaster risk reduction, and post-2015 sustainable development, now that we say the SDG, of course, linked with our own Agenda 2063. Be it as it may, the African continent is faced with multiple challenges, and they cannot be addressed by government single-handedly. This is really the situation Africa is facing in terms of its challenges. In this slide, I want to just outline space within Agenda, AU Agenda 2063. As you are all aware, outer space is the flagship of Agenda 2063, as decided by the head of states. It's one of the core initial 8 flagships of the continental blueprint framework. So it means that member states really accorded a good deal of importance to outer space or space in general, to ensure that it's one of the key pillars to achieve Agenda 2063. Undoubtedly, we believe that space can contribute to addressing climate change, environment management, and so forth. It will also provide opportunity to integrate and communalize infrastructure for resource management, efficiency, and better return on investment as far as space is concerned. Knowledge banking and appropriate sharing. Jointly, it will also give opportunity for jointly pursuing our safety and security, as space is an area where issue of security is concerned. It also within our context will allow us to promote African renaissance, innovation, and culture, and further to ensure that we can have more economic growth, economic development, empowerment, and employment of vulnerable groups, such as youth and women, and finally, to allow Africa to really take its rightful share in global commons, take charge of our space, land, and ocean. It's very, very critical. And member states ensure that they are putting space as a key pillar, a flagship of our defense, we will be able to bring it to really contribute to those aspects as far as Africa is concerned. I want to just give you a snapshot of the African space context. The African space economy is now about 7.3 billion. And we believe that by 2024, it will exceed 10.29 billion. New space startups in Africa have recently attracted more than over $200 million in investment. And in terms of human capital, job creation, no less than 8,500 people work across the African space industry, of which 2,000 work for commercial companies and 6,500 at least are employed by government through national space program and research centers. But the contribution to the economy is very, very imbalanced, and making Africa one of the big consumer of space technology. When I say big, it's relative because it's 55 member countries and everybody consumes space technology anyway. But Africa is more a consumer than a producer and a contributor to space technology. That's what you want to say here. You see that in this particular slide that the expenditure of Africa on space is around 400 billion, while its own contribution is only $5 billion. This is not acceptable, and what we have to do is to work toward really eroding this imbalance. I want to, at this stage, talk about some of the sector of space within Africa. And I would like at this stage to start with an overview of the satellite market. From 1998 to 2019, Africa has launched 49 satellites. I'm not going to go to the detail because they're all here and you can read through it. But as you can see, there are many more and more countries are getting involved. And all the satellite, the 41 we are talking about, concern all the four pillars: Earth observation, satellite communication, technology demonstration satellite, and satellite also for scientific experiment, educational project satellite, and of course, some military aspect to ensure security. By 2024, at least 19 African countries have launched at least one satellite. And even those that you consider as small countries are really gearing up to go to it. I'm from Burkina Faso, and Burkina Faso last year has started action to ensure that they go into the building of satellite and being a player in that particular one. So according to the projection, we believe that by 2024, African countries will have launched 64 satellites, and this will be an increase of 83%. It means that the spacefaring countries as they are right now, they have to wait because we are coming, definitely. In the area of Earth observation, which is really one of the well-known and popular sector, you have Africa, which is really well covered as far as Earth observation is concerned. Many institutions and centers, as you can see in this particular slide, academia and private sector involved, space and geospatial related initiative in Africa, several of them. And of course, Space and Allied Science and Technology Association and NGOs, which are here, which I believe that probably the African the African Air and Space Law Association will soon become part of those players to ensure that we work together to make space overall, and in this particular case, Earth observation, more relevant to African socioeconomic development. I would like at this stage to provide an overview of satellite communication in Africa. The satellite communication is really the space segment that will completely and fully, we believe, unlock the African development. We have the dominant Western operators, including Intelsat, SES, and Eutelsat. They are all basically actors in it. We also have the African, particularly during the last decade, African operators who are coming into play, including Rascom, Star, Nigerian satellite operators, Algeria also with a series of satellites, Egyptian communication satellites, Nilesat series, 101, 102, etc., etc. So there are more African players who are coming really into the picture to ensure that they also provide the services that can contribute to addressing the African needs. But the competition also in the satellite communication is becoming more, I should say, stiffened with the coming on board of new competitors, emergent operators, such as O3B and Avanti, and alongside the dominant and satellite satellite operators, these new operators have emerged in the African satellite communication market in recent years. They are trying to fill some of the niches that probably require more action, and we believe that their contribution also will overall ensure that Africa gets to where it's supposed to be in terms of space. The internet. In this slide, I just want to bring a glimpse on how we are seeing evolution of internet in Africa from, let's say, 2015 to 2025. And you can see the number of users is increasing. We believe that it will reach 600. In terms of the penetration, it will improve by 50%. Also, in terms of annual sale, making business, e-commerce, etc., it will increase to $75 billion by 2015. Concerning the contribution to African GDP, from 18 billion in 2015 to 300 billion in 2025. And the number of smartphones, because Africa is a good user, is using a lot of smartphones, and we believe that it jumped from 67 million to 360. So this is, of course, an opportunity to ensure that as African, we go into such market to ensure that we can produce also our smartphone from within and keep our foreign exchange at a good level. In terms of navigation, positioning, and timing, which is a very critical sector, in Africa there is currently an ecosystem of satellite navigation and positioning initiative and program focusing either on capacity building, research, economic or sectoral project implementation. The case that I have put here for your consideration is the satellite-based augmentation system, which basically use the European EGNOS. This initiative is ongoing in the north region of Africa, and also ASEGNA is using it toward its 17 member states, mostly Francophone. We have the EU have initiated a framework program to really support air transport sector and satellite navigation in Africa, and they include the SAFIR and Trigger project, and also GPO, of which we are very much involved with, to see how we can really use global GNSS application under the IGNOS in Africa support program. We also have the African Geodesic Reference Frame, which is a modern and uniform geodetic reference frame for Africa, composed of a network of continuously operating reference station using global navigation satellite system. We also have training and research institution, which I have mentioned here, and those that have also been put in place by UNOSA, hosted by universities in Africa, mostly Nigeria and also Morocco. We have the square kilometer array, which is a gigantic continental project, I shouldn't say global, it's a global project hosted by Africa in South Africa, and it's building the world's largest radio telescope involving countries in Africa and elsewhere. There are also a number of outreach projects sponsored by International Astronomical Union Office, including the DARA project. There is also the Space Weather Studies and Training in Africa, which has progressively intensified since 2007. The International Heliophysical Year, when space observing infrastructure deployment began in earnest due to joint collaborative effort of African scholars and external universities. And the African space weather community is also fast growing in Africa, but it is really still small compared to the developed world. Despite all of that, African space and digital challenges, African space is really faced with challenges. And really having brought out the current state of play on space in Africa, it remains that the continent space is facing challenges. And some of these challenges are low or lack of investment and funding, which of course lead to what we have here, the weakest internet connection, the weakest digital infrastructure, and above all, the human capital necessary for development is lagging behind. And we all know about that. And that's why it's very important when we are talking to the diaspora to be always thinking about Africa, how we can really contribute to that particular aspect of human capital development, and also other areas to ensure that some of the challenges Africa is facing are really resolved. Let me now touch base on some of the favorable worldwide contexts with real emerging new opportunities, particularly for Africa. And the first of them is the revolutionary paradigm shift, the change of satellites and rocket world. The old versus the new space. And we believe that 2005 is the divide where, space used to be very expensive. Rockets are very expensive. Satellite also very, very expensive. And it takes many years to develop, to build them, 5 to 10 years, requiring a lot of human capital that usually most African countries don't have, and basically driven by government spending, both civilian and military. And the result is that only few nations will afford to really venture into space. But the new space is characterized by a satellite that can be developed very fast, less than 2 years. It costs less, and it's also way less, 500 kilogram or less. We have the CubeSat, which basically are 10 kilogram or even below. And we have the commercial, the private sector, which is strongly venturing into it. So as a result, we believe that most African countries can really become space faring with that positive involvement. So there are opportunities, and when we were developing for instance, the space policy and strategy, we were reminding, that was back in 2014, we were reminded by ministers that space is not that expensive and that we should move with it as changes are really occurring in Africa. And we had to convince the minister at that time to really give us more time to finalize the African space policy and strategy, so before it's ready to adoption. Because when we brought it to the minister and then made the presentation, they were so amazed to see that we are really daring to move into this space, and they felt, okay, let's further ensure that we give you all the support so that we realize it as soon as possible. On this particular slide, I want to discuss about the increasing availability of digital Earth and data services. This is also a very good opportunity to ensure that Africa can become a space-faring continent. And of course, you can see Earth observation satellites are becoming more and more available. The existing frameworks, existing infrastructure are being improved. For example, Copernicus data is available for use in Africa. The new space technology are also opportunity, and I'm not going to go through it in the interest of time, but we believe that the African internet connectivity issue will be fixed with this new space technology. And if you look it cut across, there are so many of them that can really that are there to really provide that opportunity, and Africa should really make a very good use of it. So having gone through all of that, I want to come to the initial assignment, which is basically for me to introduce you the African space policy and strategy. And this slide summarizes pretty much what it is. And like what Professor Yao has already mentioned, the African space policy and strategy basically originated from the Science, Technology and Innovation Strategy for Africa, CESA 2024. That's where it really anchored. The Minister of Science and Technology clearly indicated that we have to move on and come up with an African space policy and strategy so that together in a coordinated way, we can be a player in the area of space. So we put in place the expertise, African expertise. I should mention that it's very important. The expertise were coming from member states, coordination and secretarial from the African Union Commission, and we developed the document using all the stakeholders. We conducted several workshops to ensure that all the different sector of space are taken into account. And then we came up finally with the draft policy and strategy, which was adopted by the head of states and government in January 2016. Basically, in terms of formal outer space program, we have 4 pillars: Earth observation, navigation and positioning, satellite communication, astronomy, and space science. And I have already in the first part of the presentation touched base on what is the situation in Africa concerning all these different pillars and how really we can move it to ensure that Africa can harness in a better position all of these different pillars and of course achieve its development. And the last part here, which I will also touch base with you, is about the governance, because the member states have decided that we have to put in place an African Space Agency that will basically coordinate the African space policy and strategy and its program that are derived from it, the space program. And GMS and Africa is a flagship program of, I should say, the African space policy and strategy. It's a long-term Earth observation framework agreement between African Union and European Union to basically use Earth observation, build African capacity to really harness all Earth observation to address socio-economic challenges in Africa. So the space policy and strategy. In terms of policy goals, it's to arrive at a well-coordinated and integrated African space program that is responsive to social, economic, political, and environmental needs of the continent, as well as being globally competitive. To arrive at a regulatory framework that speak now to the lawyer that you are, that supports an African space program and ensure that Africa is a responsible and peaceful user of outer space. In terms of the space policy objectives, we have ensuring that we are addressing the user's need. It's not space for space for moving the frontier of knowledge and science. No, it's ensuring that we are addressing the need of the African people. Accessing space services, very important. If you want to address the need, we need to ensure that there are services that we have to provide to them. Developing the regional market industry, the African regional market and industry, so that Africa will not remain a consumer of space, textiles, and technology, but also a player and a producer of those technologies. Adopting good governance and management, coordinating the African space arena within the global community. And here again, the lawyers can play a very, very significant role. And of course, promoting international cooperation. In terms of the strategy, the strategic goals are really the deriving of space products and services used for decision making and addressing the economic, political, social, and environmental challenges in Africa. To ensure that we have an indigenous space capability, both in the private and public sectors, that really defines a coordinated, effective, and innovative African-led space program. And in terms of strategic action, I will not go through all of it in the interest of time, but they speak loudly and clearly for it, ensuring that we are really deriving benefit from it. We are strengthening research, development, and innovation, the critical development of and utilization of human capital, the institutionalizing of corporate governance structure, adhering to regulatory requirements, building critical infrastructure, fostering regional coordination and collaboration, and finally, promoting strategic partnership and funding and sustainability, because without fund, it will be difficult to achieve that. So where are we with the implementation of the African space policy and strategy? We have already undertaken survey on Earth observation, private sector in Africa is completed. We also undertook a survey of the navigation and positioning done. We have engaged on a socio-economic study, including satellite communication, astronomy, space science, and this one is ongoing. We have already taken it to procurement process, and we believe that they will give us the go ahead to undertake the study very fast. The Pan-African University Space Science Institute, this is one of the areas where Professor Yo was working very hard on. I want him to know that the issue is still there. We are still working to ensure that we'll be able to launch that very important continental institution. Cooperation with other international partners, the AU-EU agreement, the GMS and Africa support program, which I was mentioning, derived from that, the access to Copernicus data, the global framework for climate change, which implementation is starting very soon, and of course, many countries who are seeking to really cooperate with us, of which China, France, Germany, UNOSA, of course, USA, the US, United Emirates Arab, and also Russia is also knocking at the door. So in terms of governance, clearly the African Space Agency, we have, the statute has been adopted. We also, the member states have decided on a hosting country, which is Egypt. The structural and financial implications have also been drafted, and it's to have it submitted to the member states very soon. I was mentioning about GMS and Africa. I felt that it will be to ensure that we are linking the space to concrete. I felt I will present this few slides on GMS and Africa, which is for us is really our first continental program in terms of space. That doesn't mean that there are not projects on space. There are many of them ongoing out there, but this is really the first one that we can say has really continental coordination and really covering the whole of the continent. It is within the Department of Education, Science, Technology, and Innovation now, and it basically has continental coverage. It has 4 components: data and infrastructure, product and services, communication and awareness raising, training, and capacity building. And it also has 13 consortia who are really working in the field in terms of these different services that are meant to really provide the good to the African people. GMS and Africa also has 8 marine and coastal applications. They are here, and I will not go through it. They are on the complete right side on this particular slide. Some of them include ship traffic monitoring, oil spill monitoring and warning, 3 days marine weather forecast, etc., etc. 8 of them. And it has 15 land and water applications on the left side completely. You can see natural habitat, land degradation, tropical forest, agriculture, all important issues really that can benefit African socio-economic development. So with that, I think I have been very long, and I better conclude before you people get tired of listening to me. And indeed, as I already mentioned, Africa development and space challenges, these challenges are multifaceted, interlinked, they cut across national borders, and only it's when member states are put together, when African member states are working together, integrate, that they can really address them together. In terms of opportunity, there are many. The worldwide favorable context, which I mentioned. In terms of human capital, which also is the biggest opportunity for Africa, in view of our very young population, so many young men and women that Africa has, and of course its diaspora, the huge market opportunities of 55 member states, and of course, including the infrastructure and data, including the in-situ data, the product and services for numerous applications in the 4 space segment, which has already been mentioned. The private sector, research centers, academia, which are also driver of the innovation. So in terms of curricula and training catalog, targeting the labor market needs, it's something that we need to focus on. Fundamental and applied R&D focusing on the African socio-economic need, and of course, ensuring that the private sector is there and coming up with the policy and law really to facilitate and create the environment for this private sector to really strive and contribute to making Africa a player on space. The incentive measures, etc., special taxes, condition, special funding program, etc. All those we should be looking at it and creating and encouraging startup, spin-off from university, research centers, entrepreneurship spirit and initiative. And we cannot overemphasize this, knowing that Africa has a very strong and dynamic youth, which is really there to really innovate and ensure that Africa can benefit from such innovation. And the last one concerned basically the governance. And these are some of the takeaways that you can get from this presentation that I'm concluding on. We need to have strong national and regional space and allied science and technology policies, strategy and regulatory framework. We need to clearly define or redefine role of actors and avoid competition between these different actors so that they can work in synergy and having coherence in what we are doing. That means the government, the private sector, and other actors be there, international partners. Collaboration coordination, synergy, awareness, and outreach is the last one. And with this, I want to again thank you for listening. Thank really the African Space Law Association for really giving us the opportunity to present the African space policy and strategy within the context. And I wish you a very successful meeting, while some of us would like to go back and continue celebrating the Muslim festival. I thank you.